Yo, what is up, guys? It's Verns back here again with another Supercoach video. This time it is the Round 10 NBL review. First of all, I'd like to say I'm frustrated because I've done this 2 weeks in a row now where I have cooked the video that I just recorded. Good news is I kept it to 20 minutes, so it wasn't as long this time. I didn't realize this. I just had an echo going. I just listened back to it and it was echoing on itself and I can't upload that. So I have fixed that issue and I will be recording it again. So look, this might be even faster than 20 minutes because I'm already annoyed at it, but it was a pretty quick video. First of all, I'd like to say sorry for getting this video out so late. I know what you guys are thinking. Vern, the games start in 3 hours. What do you mean you're getting the video out so late? Like, this is literally last second. So sorry about that. I'll be honest, had my squad Christmas on the weekend where we just invite the squad over, sort of just last party for the year, and I guess we just call it squad Christmas because there's always a good reason to have everyone over for drinks. And so I was pretty riggedy on Saturday, pretty wrecked by Sunday, and was catching up on the games by Monday. Got caught up by Tuesday in enough time to be able to actually go do a podcast on the Supercoach Hub channel. I do recommend jumping over, obviously subscribing to those guys if you haven't, but awesome pod where I got to sit down with Do It For Jack, David, who is the leading the league currently in NBL Supercoach, current rank 1. And that was really sick to be able to sit down with him and just sort of have that one-on-one conversation with him. I think it's a great video and a great watch, guys. Also, last week, I obviously pumped out the video with Supercoach with DR, which was awesome as well. A good mid-season review, and I had a blast with both of these. I do recommend, with the Supercoach with DR's video, it was a mid-season review. We do talk about the round 9 round that had passed at the end of, second half of the video, but I still think the first half of that video is a good shout, irregardless of the round, because I think we just still talk about relevant information, just in the sense of how teams are going, worst, best trades, things like that, that it's like it doesn't matter what round it is. At the end of the day, it's just relevant, good information. And then obviously on the Supercoach Hub podcast, as a great time with David there, but that was obviously for round 10, so 3 hours before, I guess, the relevance of that sort of starts dropping off a bit. I know not much time to jump over there and watch that if you haven't already. It is also an hour and a half long one, so it is a mammoth. Honestly, though, it's great information, and it was really good getting that insight from the current rank 1. A lot of things he's done well that you can take note of and look at maybe using for next year, or even using towards the second half of this year to help improve your current rank. So I do recommend getting over there and giving that a watch. With that, me personally, I usually listen to a lot of my podcasts when I'm driving, so I love a nice long podcast to just be able to put on while I'm cruising around. So yeah, if you guys got a long drive coming up for some reason, or you're just sitting around doing stuff in the house and you just want something in the background to listen to, yeah, I recommend just chucking it on if you want. Obviously, as I said, there's not much time to do this, so I don't expect people to sit down and just try and smash that out over the next 3 hours. But yeah, just thought I'd give that a shout because they were both great podcasts and just really enjoyed doing both of those. It was unfortunate Barnsley was sick, so he actually got asked me on the day to sort of come in and host it, so I do run as the host for that video, which was the first time I've ever done something like that. And look, I'm happy with the effort I put in. Definitely things I could have improved on here or there. A few things I messed up and I fumbled over my tongue a lot at the start, but look, I think we got a good grip of it, and I think it was still a really good podcast that we put together, and it was just a good experience. I really enjoyed doing it. So yeah, hopefully get to do many more of those in the future, with plenty of other players that we get to talk about or to. Anyway, jumping into my round before, I drag this on for 20 plus minutes and make it twice as long as the last recording. We can see I put out a 413, pretty decent score. I thought it was pretty good, and then I dropped 59 ranks, and I was very surprised by that. Down to 491, so still inside the top 500. The round rank was 1,157, so I didn't think it was that bad, but it really shows in the top echelon of players right now. If you miss a beat on 1 week, you're going to drop ranks. Like, we need to be really pushing the best outcome every single rank. And don't get me wrong, I think I've got my team into a good position where moving forward, I think I can do that. And there's not a huge difference between my rank and top 100. I think 150 points and I'd be in the top 100. So, few good weeks we can probably put this together and we can actually head back towards that top 100. And as I said, I'm happy with how the team's looking, and I'm happy with the way the team is going. And, I think we're going in the right direction. So we'll jump into it. We'll take a look at it. I only quickly went over the games before in my other video, and I'm going to do it probably even quicker now, so I'd like to say sorry in advance there. I might talk about player specific a little bit more, might be a bit more relevant, but look, Cairns versus Sydney, in reality an entertaining game. Obviously the shot clock stopped working, and they could have called the game off, but they chose to keep playing in good faith, and I think that was great. It was, they say good faith, but then 5 minutes left on the clock, you could feel Cairns coming and Sydney start trying to hold the ball up. So sort of went to more of a domestic level game in that sense with no shot clock. Just hold the ball as long as you can. But I think actually was a bit of a detriment for Sydney because they're trying to hold the ball up, so Cairns come up and they start double teaming and they force Sydney to make bad passes, and it allows Cairns to get a lot of steals, a lot of turnovers, a lot of fast break points down the other end, and actually get the game interesting. Obviously, Antonio takes a shot half a second after the buzzer has sounded and hits the half-court three, starts going nuts. I think we all knew he was half a second late. Creek was here for this game, and he was calling it the second he shot it. It's late, and you just knew it was. You watch the replay, and unfortunately, it's half a second late, and they don't go to overtime. And I think everyone sort of knew that, except for the Cairns players who were going a bit nuts at the time. It looks still a really entertaining game. McCall gets fouled off with about 8 minutes left in the fourth, and this man's put down 34 Supercoach points, basically not playing the fourth quarter to a degree. Like, if this man was on, especially when there's so many steals and whatnot happening at the end of this game, he would have had a massive game that round as well, and would have been pushing, I swear, probably 120 as a score. Like, what a monster performance from him this week. Miller was a bit slow, but when McCall went off, he was definitely scoring more of the points at the end, getting assists, getting just baskets, getting steals. Quoll ran into foul trouble early in this game, which was unfortunate. Honestly, Sean Bruce, this is what Ford was talking about with Quoll's reputation, is he has this reputation now where he's so physical with people that he gets a foul on everything. And Sean Bruce is like running next to him, and like Quoll's like very close. Like, even if he's physically got his body on him, he's not pushing him or anything. And Sean Bruce just drops and grabs Quoll's jersey and brings him to the ground with him. And because of it, Quoll gets a foul. And that happened like twice where Sean Bruce just completely flops out of nowhere just because Quoll was near him, and Quoll got fouls for it. And it was like, damn, that's reputation right there, unfortunately. Like, look, Quoll is definitely a physical player, but Sean Bruce was abusing that, and it was so unfortunate for Quoll in this game. And yeah, I mean, we'll jump down to the next Cairns game from here. I mean, I didn't really talk about Roberts there. Roberts was a little bit mere in this game. I mean, Sydney were running a zone in this game, and they were definitely more actively aware of Roberts, unlike United last week. So Roberts was playing down towards that low block, trying to rotate in, but with the way the zone was set up, it wasn't really working that Cairns were beating their men off the dribble anymore. They were relying a lot more on the outside shooting, which we didn't like. Last week they didn't really shoot outside, they drove, and it was a lot better. This week they was trying to shoot outside, it wasn't working out, and then when they did drive and try and get it over the Roberts, Sydney were very actively aware of that. Hunter would rotate to it, Hogue would rotate to it, Boland would rotate to it, Tui would rotate to it. They weren't letting him get these easy passes, and unfortunately he just was a real non-factor in this game. Gets subbed off early and then just doesn't really get relevant for the rest of it, unfortunately. Illawarra versus Perth. Illawarra end up shutting down Perth's massive run. 6 games in a row, taking out some of the top teams in the competition, and then boom, lose to the bottom of the ladder, Illawarra, who, to be fair, looked really good. They started at 10-0. They were looking good. Perth couldn't hit a shot. It was just one of those games, Sometimes you just can't hit your shots off, and it sucks, and it feels like the other team, everything they touch is gold, and that's sort of what this was. Illawarra get away with the big lead. Perth bring it back at some point, but then Illawarra managed to run away at the end. And something we talked about in the Supercoach Hub podcast, David brought it up, and look, I was definitely something I've been eyeing off. You know what? I might as well just give it a shout now, but AJ Johnson looks like a sneaky one. He was, $58K, bottom basement price last week, put 18 points down and went up 14K to about 73K. He's nice and cheap. Illawarra have a good run at the end. The way the coach has changed this around, he's getting more court time, and he is looking more not as shy. Like, he wants the ball, he wants to score, he wants to be involved, which is really good from his side of things. Hopefully he doesn't go too big this week and gain too much cash again, but I do think next week he's going to be someone I want to get in. Obviously, you look at our players now, if we're downgrading to him, we're banking probably a good 60K minimum from whoever we go down from. Put that in our pocket, and it allows us to make an upgrade next week elsewhere. So I'm really excited to be looking at him next week. So definitely watch this space around AJ Johnson, because obviously if he doesn't show up this week, maybe we temper our expectations and maybe it's not a play. But for what we saw this week, he definitely looked like he could be someone that we want to move towards as soon as possible for a little bit of a cash cow and just a good run home for a bench rookie sort of thing. Next, New Zealand versus Taz. Taz ended up getting up on them. New Zealand wasn't very good this game. I mean, Taz were obviously a lot better. Crawford was unbelievable. I mean, nothing you could do about that. Sometimes the superstar on the other team shows up and he just makes shots and you can't stop it. He was just hitting all these middies, looked so good with the ball, and I mean, Doyle wasn't there, so anyone that was on Crawford just got massively rewarded. A lot of people want to jump on him this week. Heads up, Doyle is back. Doyle is back for both of these games this week, so you're probably not going to get the same output from Crawford. I'd like to think, look, he's still a superstar of a player. He's still going to probably score very well, but I'd like to think that his ceiling is dropped down a little bit, so temper your expectations. Don't expect it to be quite as high as it was this week, because he's not the only go-to man. You know, last week he really was the go-to man. Ball in his hand constantly, and on top of it, he was on his game, hitting his shots. As I said, that's not going to happen every week, and with Doyle back, it's probably going to eat into some of his possessions. So I think temper your expectations with Crawford. New Zealand's side of things, Lamb got fouled off, unfortunately. PJC did pretty well at the end and managed to get to this good 41 score, so unfortunately did that the wrong way. Obviously, I could choose with the McCall DPP to either take Lamb or PJC on field. I don't think Lamb was the wrong play. He ended up getting fouled off, and nothing you can really do about that. Early game foul trouble, gets fouled off. He's still a superstar. And it does bring into contention this week. Do I keep PJC or do I keep Lamb? PJC has an 18 break even. Lamb has a 36 break even. So cash-wise, you'd think PJC is the better play, but we're going to be keeping them for the double game the week after that. So all of a sudden, you put 3 games into this rotation, and this week's break even isn't as important. And Lamb has shown up every single double game, so I'm kind of... The entire time I've been honest, I've been keeping PJC and getting rid of Lamb, but I'm tempted to actually switch that right now, just even talking about it. But yeah, second game for Cairns here. Cairns ended up beating Adelaide. High-scoring game, good game from both teams. Adelaide were actually shooting pretty well, but Cairns just, I mean, the defense were a bit lackluster from both teams, to be fair, but yeah, they were definitely shooting well. Adelaide defense was very lackluster. Quall comes out in the start of this game, hits some threes, gets going. Awesome. Roberts actually should have got going. He got a block early, got a few rebounds, and then had 2 wide open layups that he just missed. And that's the big difference for him here. If he makes those 2 layups, he probably stays on the court, keeps playing on. But he misses 2 layups in a row. Ford drags him. Wardenberg comes on, and Wardenberg plays amazing. Drops 30 Supercoach points. He was very instrumental in this win. And at the end of the day, when you got 2 players playing for the same spot, when one of them's playing out of his mind, the other one's not going to get any court time. So that is the worry with Roberts. If Wardenberg if he's back, if he starts playing to the level that we know he can, all of a sudden Roberts may not be as relevant. He has a 36 break even, and in my opinion, he's a trade because he was low risk, high reward last week. Because low risk, he's going to make coin no matter what. High reward because he has a high ceiling. We saw that last week. But all of a sudden, now he's going to be losing money in most situations. So now it's a high risk to keep him, and it's probably low reward. You're probably not going to get crazy points from him. You're probably going to run him on the bench, so not even relevant anyway. And if he has a poor game, he's going to drop all that money he just made, if not more. And then when can you get him out of your team? You just may not be able to. And if you end up holding him, he might be 100k, less than 100k by the time you have to get rid of him in 3 weeks' time. So a bit disappointing from him. Wardenberg, as I said, played pretty well, hit some good threes, was just active, was much more active on the rebounds, and I think that's something that when somebody else comes into your position and they're very active on the rebounds, he had to step it up. McCall, amazing, 66 points, was an absolute superstar, 15 assists, oh my goodness, 19 points, 15 assists, like that's crazy. And then gets all these steals that he always gets because he's so active in defense. 0 turnovers, so good. Miller was also really good in this game, but I might have been game 1 or one of these games. He dropped 7 turnovers, unfortunately, and that's massive. So he still had a really good week. He was still a really good player, but McCall, I think, definitely. I think that's 5 rounds in a row where you could consider him 40 plus. And look, the 3 games before this, he had a 40 plus game when he put the 60 points down in the round. He got a 20 point, then a 40 point game on the second one. Then he dropped almost 90 last week with 2 40 point games. I think in hindsight, we look at that and this man's had 3 40 point games in a row. Maybe we should have considered him a bit more of a shout than Miller, but I think we all had the Miller 65 points in our head, and we're just like, well, with that upside, how can we go against him? But in reality, McCall being really consistent, and then look at that, apparently he's also got crazy upside. I think it does help, though, when your team's actually scoring baskets. They're hitting the outside shots, they're hitting the inside shots, they're hitting the mid-ranges. Definitely helps in that aspect. So, look, McCall, amazing. Anyone that put the captain on him, congrats. Really deserved that. And good win from Cairns. Melbourne, Brisbane, going to be making this nice and quick because none of their players are really relevant anymore for Supercoach. Brisbane start off really good, get out to an early lead. Sam McDaniel, there we go. Sam McDaniel started out of the gate like crazy, hit some good scores, got a massive dunk when I thought Llewellyn Jr. was going to swat him like crazy, and he just went up strong and slammed it down. But look, Brisbane started in the lead in this first quarter, and then over the next quarter scored about 40 points, and Melbourne scored about 80 over the next 3. They got absolutely stomped after that first quarter, and the game just, not even relevant past that point, honestly. Sydney versus Southeast Melbourne. Okay, Southeast Melbourne come out, get the win. Adam was really poor. Hogue was really poor. Jalen Galloway was really good. He was hitting threes. He was fast breaks, getting steals, attacking the ring. And I think it's one of those things where with Adams having a poor game, we've seen him have poor games before, but then he's blown up in like the fourth quarter and had like 20 points. But this is I think in the last 3 rounds, 2 games now, that he's had like sub-20 scores where he was really poor. So a little bit of a worry there for Adams. Hogue just couldn't really hit his threes and just wasn't really active in the game. And at the end of the day, Galloway was playing well, so I think they just decided, you know what, you're off your game, Hogue, sit down, let Galloway do his thing. And yeah, I mean, look, Sydney players will consider next week and hopefully one more week sample size to see how Galloway and Hogue mix. Hopefully that'll give us a better read on who we can pick from. But Southeast Melbourne, super relevant this week and super important game from them. Good win. I mean, Cummings gets dropped. He's no longer part of the team because of off-court commitments that he wasn't holding up his end of the bargain. So that means that they end up going with Brown. They go for Air, Kenyon, Creek, and Williams as the starting 5, and honestly a really good starting 5. Air played 35 minutes, Kenyon played 33 minutes, massive minutes from them. So they're massive shouts for this week's double. Saying that, Southeast Melbourne have gone ahead and drafted a new foreign player. Import, there we go. He's 6'5", he's meant to be a 3-and-D guy, so you'd assume he's playing that small forward, maybe sometimes power forward role. Look, 6'5" I always think's big, but in reality it's not for basketball, so maybe that shooting guard / small forward role, and that will definitely affect Ben Air and Kenyon at the end of the day. I think it more directly affects Kenyon in the sense that it's probably Kenyon's small forward role. Saying that, though, I wouldn't be surprised if they then move the import into the small forward role and then shuffle Kenyon down to the 2 and Brown as 1, meaning Air then moves to the bench. Or Kenyon could go to the bench and Air will just be the 2. So that definitely affects them. It's definitely going to affect their minutes. I do think, though, from what we saw, I think they're going to still have increased minutes. I mean, we saw Air at the start of the season when Brown was out of the team and he was playing alongside Cummings. He was really, really good when it was just the 2 of them. And I think now that Cummings is out, Air could revert to that, and we could see him be really, really good again. Obviously, the import actually isn't really going to play on the weekend. The expectation is because he's just flown in, he's only going to play a small amount of minutes in the second game. So we can sort of look at what we saw this week in the Sydney game and expect that again this week. So I'd expect Air and Kenyon to still play big minutes, probably 25 plus from each of them. And that should be enough to warrant a good Supercoach score. So I think they're both shouts, but I would expect week 2 for them to definitely be more affected by the import and have a lesser output. But as we sort of talked about in the Supercoach Hub, if they can have a big enough week this week, as Dave mentioned, then it doesn't really matter if their next week is a little bit lackluster if they can have a big week this week. And I think why not take the punt, especially Ben Air, only 112k, he's very cheap, he's priced at 10, he doesn't have to do much to really warrant, to just perform at his price, and I think there's definitely big upside there. So here's where I'm going to be looking. We're going to just jump straight into the trades here. Lamb, I talked about him being out, but maybe I do go for Parker Jackson Cartwright instead. Look, this is literally on the fly. This is actually different to my last video. I did not do this on the last video. But we're looking at Alan Williams here, and then we're going to look at this week's scoring. We are going to look at Ben Air. Where are you? Here we are. Perfect, Ben Air. And this actually looks a lot better because when I had Lamb going out of the team instead of PJC, it meant that Air was on field for me, which kind of felt awkward, but I'd feel much more comfortable with Warrenberg on the field. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Cairns are into New Zealand, though. I mean, South Melbourne is into Illawarra, so maybe. But I'm going to take the punt here. I think this is really, really nice for us. Yeah, this looks good in my opinion. I'm very happy with actually keeping Lamb over PJC. And then the following week, Sydney give up points. Brisbane may choose to double down on Lamb more than PJC. But yeah, no, actually, I like how this looks. I'm going to change this at the last second and go Lamb in instead of PJC. I think just for structure-wise, being able to put Air on the bench and Warrenberg on field feels a lot better too. Now, jumping into the captains, I think we put it on Williams. I think we've got 3 tiers of captains here. Tier 1 is either Alan Williams, who I think should be the most captain player this week, and then McCall. Now, if you want to take the risk with McCall, I have no problem with that. I think McCall's more of a shout, though, for those who aren't able to get Williams in their side because he is a pretty penny to bring in. The next one, tier 2, I think you'd be looking at your Creeks, you would look at your Millers, and then maybe looking at your Joe Lual. So for anyone that brings in Joe Lual, yeah, you can definitely put a captain shout on him. I would still prefer McCall or Williams instead. But look, if you're bringing in the pod play and you want to double down on that by making him captain, definitely feel free to do that. Nothing wrong there. And I think Miller is tier 2 and Creek is tier 2 because I just think McCall's probably shown over the last 3 rounds that he's just a little bit more consistent on putting out these high scores. And then I think Creek, just once again, Williams is a bit more consistent in putting out the high scores. So I think they're sort of tier 2. And then tier 3, I'd throw down Crawford and Doyle. Doyle obviously being back. Crawford's here. Look, the only reason I'm saying this is both of them have had up and down weeks. There's been weeks that Doyle's only dropped 20 points. Crawford's dropped in the teens. They've been up and down. I don't feel as reliable about them as these other players. Like, definitely feel free to throw them on them if you want. But I talked about in the podcast with the Supercoach Hub, Crawford definitely being a shout if Doyle wasn't in the side, but he is in the side. So I'm going to put them as a tier 3. But yep, I think Williams, McCall are your go-to guys. And I think most people have them. So yeah, look, this is how the team's going to be looking for me. I'm not going to be changing this before the games are played or anything like that. So expect to see the team like this. I'll still do a tweet saying what my trades were, just whatever. Yeah, we got 2.5 hours basically until this game, so I'll definitely let you all go and enjoy that. Once again, so sorry for being out so late. Once again, I appreciate you all for staying towards the end. I appreciate those that have liked, subscribed, just for watching the video. Awesome stuff. And as I said, go check out those pods if you get the time for it. So yeah, till next time, guys. Peace. Later.